the philosophy of you're supposed to have it figured it out by 30. And here's the real answer. No, you're not. I work with people who are 75 who are still figuring things out. This is life.
Mhm.
We're so used to defining ourselves through what we produce. And that's not our fault. That's culture. So just having that ability to flex and maneuver when you can, that to me is the best skill you could possibly have above all other vocations. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
Attention marketers and entrepreneurs, this is Valuetising, the place where we talk about scaling brands worth promoting. If you're a mission-driven entrepreneur obsessed with creating, scaling, and exiting multi-million-dollar brands, this is for you. My name is Santiago Phoenix and I am a business growth consultant, online marketer, and investor. I have helped more than 100 7- and 8-figure founders increase profits, claim their time back, and transform the world. Now it's your turn. Welcome to the show.
Hello and welcome to Valuetising. My guest today is Camille Attell, the founder and creator of the Remote Work School. Camille is a free spirit who has traveled the United States full-time for years while working from her RV. She's also a pro at digital marketing and has helped almost 1,000 people create a life on their own terms throughout remote work. Camille, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Wow, you studied up on me. That was such a nice summary.
Yes, I really like your mix of being so good at marketing skills, but you also have this relaxed life. And I want to start by asking you this question that I saw actually on your sales page, which is retirement isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Mm.
So what do you mean by that and what led you to that realization?
Wow, you even looked at my sales page. I love that you did your research. Retirement isn't always cracked what it's cracked up to be, could mean a variety of things. So a lot of people, at least the people I serve who are either approaching retirement or who are in retirement, probably had a vision of what retirement might look like. A lot of people think I'm going to relax. I'm finally going to do those things I haven't done because I've worked my whole life and sacrificed for my family or my spouse or my health or whatever. And now finally I'm going to live on my terms. And it turns out more often than not, that's not true because something comes into life that you didn't count on. Right now we're experiencing a very volatile stock market. And a lot of people who maybe were planning for retirement by putting money away in the market are looking at, I don't have as much money as I thought I would have. Or maybe there was a health issue that forced them back into the workforce. Or maybe they got let go because of ageism in the workforce. And all of these things can impact what they thought their retirement was going to be. And then the last thing I'll say is a lot of people don't even envision the typical retirement. They don't want to just sit around all day and garden or play with their grandkids. They want to live. They want to travel. They want to do stuff. And they maybe even want to still work. And so I cater to people who fit in any of those categories.
So what's kind of the story behind how you realize this?
So the story, you alluded to it earlier, is my husband and I got into an RV back in 2016 and started traveling full time. And that was after 20 plus years in the workforce. I had been a corporate trainer, among many other things. And we just hit a phase of life where we thought, well, if we try to wait until we retire, that might not happen.
Yeah.
So we took a big leap of faith, left our jobs, our security, our home, everything, got into an RV and started traveling. And that was a really big wake-up call about how much I didn't know about online business. So I got kind of sucked into the whole online business world. And I originally started working with RVers who wanted to work remotely. But over time, I learned that I was attracting more of the retirement crowd or people who just saw a different future. And I really love that population for a whole bunch of reasons. But I'll pause there because I think your question was, how did I discover this? I discovered it simply by listening and interacting with people and learning who I was attracting and what they wanted.
So you had like your mini retirement, and did you face this like this isn't what I really wanted?
Well, that's an interesting question because I think a lot of people have an impression that that's what I did is I mini retired, and quite the opposite was true. I worked harder than ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't intend to do that. I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, if I'm being honest, I just wanted something different out of life. I was doing the same job in the same life, and I drove the same route to the same office for a lot of years. And I just got to a point where I'm like, there has to be something else. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew it wasn't the status quo. So I got into the RV and I lasted about 3 months and
Yeah.
I panicked. I was like, okay, I have to figure something out because I need money. I can't retire. I think at the time I was like 44 years old, maybe 45, I don't know. And so I was too young to retire. I didn't have the income, but I knew nothing about online business or really even working remotely, other than working for an employer remotely, a
Yeah.
couple days a week. You know what I mean? So I just had a huge wake up call. And I think I've worked more than ever because I had to literally reinvent myself and start from scratch. And I just went crazy trying to figure it out. I mean, I worked like 50 hours a week, and I don't recommend that. But now that I have that experience, I can help others avoid all the mistakes I made.
How was that process of reinventing yourself in your 40s? Because like right now, my wife, she is 30 years old,
Mm.
and she started to, I mean, she is a philosopher, a political scientist, and then did a master's degree. So she was very into academics, and then she realized she doesn't want to do that, any of that anymore. So
Wow.
right now she's doing two very opposite things, which are shamanism.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like shamanic healing,
Cool. I love
and
that.
she's studying photography.
Wow.
But it
Okay.
was hard for her like to reinvent herself, and she was like, oh my god, I'm 30 years old, I'm supposed to have it all figured out. How did you live that yourself?
Oh my gosh, I'm cracking up over here because some of the people who are listening, because I'll share this with my population, they're like 60, wondering how they're supposed to reinvent themselves and only wish they could do that at 30. I mean, what a gift for your wife to recognize at such a young age. Really, she's young. That that's not the path for her, and to take action to figure it out. And I'll tell you, most people will tell you that they go through many reinventions throughout their life. Your career is just one of them, right?
Yeah.
Getting married, having a family, starting something new. Shamanism, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. I mean, that's a whole different way of living, much less reinventing. So I think to answer your question, it's a very personal journey. I think your wife has definitely subscribed to the philosophy of you're supposed to have it figured it out by 30. And here's the real answer. No, you're not. I work with people who are 75 who are still figuring things out. This is life.
So it's not just millennials.
Oh no. Oh my gosh. No. And it's not even by gender. It's not age related. It's not even economic status related, because I have people on all ends of the economic status, meaning people who are, live on the margins, and people who had a nice cushy life, and we all go through the same thing. What does it mean now? What am I going to do? And what does that process look like? Honestly, this is life. That's what I'm going to say about that. I could get on this soapbox all day, but I won't. I'll pause.
Well, I do want your thoughts. uh, so
Well, I'll wait for another question, because honestly, I'll steamroll you if I don't take a breath.
wow. Yeah. So what are your thoughts right now of that vision of vocation?
Mm.
Like that you have a vocation. I mean, I think the idea of one single career
Mm-hmm.
has been questioned more and more, but
Yes.
we'll still think a lot about a profession
Mm-hmm.
or an
Mm-hmm.
industry or a craft. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. What do
How
you
do I
think?
think about that?
Yeah.
Well, I used to think that way, that you needed to have one or become an expert or get really good at one thing. And I think more and more that's outdated advice. I think if you look at, especially if we look at I want to call them zillennials, but that's not it. It's Gen Z.
Oh yeah.
And, they don't subscribe to that at all. And I don't know if you're Gen Z or millennial or maybe Gen X. I don't know.
Millennial.
But you're which one?
Millennial.
Millennial. So you're not quite that Gen Z, but Gen Z is like, they don't want to have one career and work for one person and one identity. And they know that because technology especially has created so many opportunities and everything's quite fractured.
Yeah.
And they're looking at a retirement that probably doesn't seem as possible as the other generations. They're doing like 3 jobs, or three or more ways to earn income, right? And they've got a job on the side, and they've got a side business, and maybe they're an influencer, or maybe they're generating income from a digital product. And I think the more we can embrace that, the better off people will be, because if one of those things gets impacted, you can pivot to something else quickly. And case in point, this happened to me last year. I had 2 different contract jobs because I really wanted the security.
Yeah.
Both of those contract jobs got hit, and I was able to quickly pivot back into my business full time. So just having that ability to flex and maneuver when you can, that to me is the best skill you could possibly have above all other vocations. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
Okay, cool. And it's
Wow.
harder. I think it is harder so I'm Gen Z. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm Gen Z in my brain, but I'm not. I'm Gen X.
Yes.
I'm Gen X. And then you have the baby boomers, and then you have kind of the in-betweeners, right? Because you have people who straddle some of the generations. And I think it is a little harder for the Gen X and above because we just didn't grow up in this time. So, you have to train for these things, but it is doable. Lots of people do this at any age.
So when they ask you, Camille, what do you do? Or who are you?
Oh,
What
I
do you
hate
say?
that question. Yeah, I hate who am I? Well, that's a whole different question, right? And that's a problem too, because people will overly identify with their work or their position in life. Who I am is somebody with a lot of heart. And as you mentioned, I'm a free spirit, and I'm somebody who wants to make a difference to the people in my life. That's who I am. And that's really different from what I do. And what I do as a career is I help people figure out what their own path should be. And I do that by way of remote work school specifically, because I do believe that remote work gives people a lot of flexibility. I also believe that remote work is the new retirement plan. And because I serve people in retirement, that's what I do, but that's not really who I am. That's just a little piece. So I always tell people, try to separate your identity from the work that you do. Oh my gosh, that's one of the hardest things to do.
Oh my
Does
God.
that answer your question? I know that was a long mouthful, but does that help?
Yes, that's hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's hard to do. And I have struggled with this so much. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I have many passions and I call myself a multi-passionate, but I don't know. It seems like maybe more people are like that than I think of. Yeah, like you are saying, like nowadays the norm, actually what's required is to have many different skills, many different passions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's very hard to know this is who I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, because we're so used to defining ourselves through what we produce. And that's not our fault. That's culture. I mean, I don't know what culture you grew up in. I won't make any assumptions, but I grew up in an American culture. And there are a lot of other cultures around the world like this. Capitalism is a culture. I mean, it really does put the value of who you are as a human being on what you can produce and the results you can get. So of course we're going to define ourselves through that lens, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It becomes a challenge though when you are faced with, well, what am I going to do now? And who am I? And where do I fit in? And who values me? And that's a lot of the struggle that my people, the people that I help come up against, because especially at a certain age, if you're getting aged out of the workforce, it creates a whole lot of um, mind chatter around, well, do I have any value? And who's going to value me and who's going to pay me for that value? And where do I go? I mean, just a whole host of inner fears around that.
Yeah, I can't believe that. Like, to kind of answer, I grew up in Colombia, in South America,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also a capitalistic society, but there are indigenous tribes, and I admire how it's completely the opposite. The elders are the ones who have all the knowledge. They have the most value,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's crazy how we have turned that upside down.
Yes, exactly. And we're missing that, I think, in our culture. I mean, there's pros and cons to capitalism and all kinds of other, um, structures. But yes, I mean, like marginalizing an elder community who has all this wisdom and all these life experiences, we need that. We can learn from that. I think that's absolutely critical, and I think it is missing. So I didn't know that about Colombian culture. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So in your like your grandparents, grandparents.
Hmm.
I also read this on your sales page.
Hmm.
I actually read sales pages because I'm a copywriter.
Ah, there it is.
Yes. But it said, your depression era grandparents told you go to school and get a job.
That's right. Yep.
How was your family reaction when you wanted to go into this new adventure in your RV?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me address the comment you just said. I love that you read that. My depression era grandparents. Yes, they said go to school, get a job. I think they had one other thing. I don't remember. Maybe like get a good car or something. So that came out of their experiences growing up with not having access to everything because of the depression, right? And so for them, the ultimate goal was security. And that's what they drilled into me. And that's exactly what I did. I went to school and I got a job. Barely, though. School was really hard for me. So by the time I got to the point where I was ready to leave that behind, unfortunately, my grandparents are no longer here, but they would have lost their minds. I mean, it would have been not at all supportive, even though, they were in the military and they traveled all the time, but they were sort of forced to do that. And they had security while doing it, and I didn't have any of that. I was just like, I left everything behind flying free or whatever. So I don't think they would have been on board with that. Now, my parents came out of the hippie era. My dad was straight from the Haight-Ashbury era and
Yeah, nice.
total free spirit, musician, motorcycle riding, live life on his terms. So for him, he was like, sure, do whatever you want. I don't care. But what surprised them is they thought I was only going to do it for a year. And then when 2 years went by and 3 years went by, they were like, wait a minute, when are you coming home?
Yes.
And what are you doing? And they're like, are you retired? And they did not understand at all that I was doing online business, what that meant or how it works. Even now, I think they're like, oh yeah, my daughter, she like does something with people and helps them get jobs or something. Why don't you call her? They tell all their friends to call her.
And of course, you
So,
have explained a thousand times what you do.
right? It's fine. They're very supportive. That's the bottom line answer.
All right. And your mother?
So my birth mother is no longer here. She would have been completely fine with it. Again, she was such a free spirit, total hippie. My mother actually was, one of the original kind of like have a million skills, do a million things kind of people. She
Yeah.
talk about reinvention. I mean, my mother reinvented herself over and over again. She kind of had to, just sort of the lifestyle she lived, but she was a writer, a musician. And she would just tell people these things. One day she'd just decide, oh, I'm a copywriter now. So she would just train herself how to be a copywriter, and over and over again, she did that. So I maybe have that a little bit from her. Although I'm not quite as bold, I'll actually go learn the skill instead of like
Yeah,
just telling people I have it. You know what I mean? But a nice blend between my free-spirited mother and father and my very grounded World War II Depression era grandparents. So I've
that's
got balance.
interesting.
Yeah.
So your grandparents lived throughout the depression, and now people say we are in a recession, maybe the biggest one in, I don't know, in our times or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How do you think this one is different from there? And more importantly, how can we prepare for it?
Wow, those are two absolutely massive questions. So I think you have to argue, are we really in a recession? Because there are conditions that have to be met to say we're actually in a real recession. And those conditions are constantly changing, right? I mean, are we in a recession? I don't know. I mean, I think a recession is quantified by two back-to-back quarters of what is it, GDP not growing. I don't know. I'm probably not saying that the right way. And I don't know that we've missed those or hit those conditions. I think there are currents happening, right? You've got a bouncy stock market that's kind of all over the place. You have layoffs happening in the tech sector, but at the same time, you have one of the lowest unemployment rates right now. So there are more jobs and more job creation. But you have inflation happening and you have people struggling to just pay bills. So there's just all these really competing priorities. How is this different than the depression that my grandparents lived through? Vastly different. I mean, that was a depression. Money had no value. People were scrimping for bread.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you had dust bowls wiping out communities. I mean, just really, truly vastly different times. Not to say that people aren't affected right now or truly impacted by what we're going through, but we're not stuffing, dollars under mattresses. You know what I mean? So that's the first part of your question. How can people prepare? I go back to what I said earlier, and that is upskilling in a way that you can pivot quickly from one thing to the next. Like I was able to pivot from that contract job back into my business pretty quickly. And just having that ability to be adaptable and be ready to take a job or work for yourself or get a contract or sell something online, that's really, you have at least two of those so that you don't find yourself without, an income coming in.
So kind of having at least two diversified income streams.
I mean, at least, and that's just from working. I mean, I'm not even counting like if you have the ability to invest in the stock market or real estate or other investments. I don't teach people that because I'm not a licensed fiduciary and that's not my thing. But if you're going to generate your income from your work, I think having a minimum of two ways to do that is absolutely critical these days. Relying on one job or one line of business revenue is just too risky, at least for me. Yeah. And really most people that I see.
That's interesting. It's like you are trying to really find a sweet spot between security and freedom.
Ooh, that's interesting. I'd have to think. You're asking very tough questions today.
I'm sorry.
I need more coffee for this. Yeah, okay, let me answer that a new way. I don't think it's a either or. I don't think you have to say, I either want security or I want freedom. I think you can have both. But I think for too long, we've made it a false choice. I either have to sacrifice my dreams and how I want to live to make money, or I have to sacrifice money to go live my dreams. I think neither of those is true. Because right now, I think this is the first time in my life where I feel like I have both security and freedom. I work when I want. I work how I want. I work who I want to work with. I charge what I want to charge. I don't have to wait for a raise or a boss to give me a bonus. And I answer to myself and my customers. And all of that is freedom. So, and security. So I don't know. That's my answer to that question.
Wow. Yeah, I just find this so fascinating, really. It's very, very relevant today because, for example, I see a lot of people my age um, who are entrepreneurial, and it's like a very weird relationship with work.
Mm.
Like on one hand, we are always we want to work, we want to hustle, we want to do this, but the end goal is to retire and not have to work.
Mm.
But maybe like I see people who their biggest goal is to retire by 30. But
Wow.
I think, yeah, many of them find what you're speaking about. Like work is not, it doesn't have to be a hustle that you want to get rid of,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to redefine it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, because if not, we are sacrificing all of these years because we want to retire, and then we retire and it's not so good. And it's like I wasted all these years and now I have no purpose. I don't know, do you ever find yourself people like that, for example, that they have reached a lot of material success, they
Mm-hmm.
have, I don't know, they have sold their company
Mm-hmm.
for millions, and now like they have no purpose?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, first of all, you said a lot of stuff I'd love to unpack, but we only have so much time. So to answer your question, absolutely. I think it's one of the worst things people can do is step out of a career, especially one that like you're saying, where they were extremely successful, whether they sold the business or they, worked for corporations or companies or whatever, and then they transition to nothing. That's unfortunately when people will sometimes develop an illness or,
Mm.
die unexpectedly. Like you have to have something, a purpose of some kind. It doesn't have to be work, but it has to be something. And it probably more than just, oh, I'm going to travel now. Because for a lot of people, travel or hobbies doesn't quite give them enough purpose. They want contribution, they want to leave a legacy, right?
Yeah.
So lining something up is really important. For people who want to retire at 30
Mhm.
and they want to hustle, hustle, hustle. I mean, look, some people can do that. I mean, I've seen it done. I will say that I don't think you have to hustle though to get there. Um, and I don't know why people really want to retire at 30. I don't know. That's just weird to me. I mean, what are you going to do for the next 60 years, honestly? Like,
Just
I,
live on the beach and
oh, how boring. I don't know. I'm a different person though. I like working. I hope I can work for as long as I want to work. And I sacrificed way too many years. I really did, trying to be somebody, trying to climb a ladder, trying to build a business that I thought was going to be something. And a lot of that is just ego. And ego is real strong in the 20s and 30s and 40s. And then at some point, you're like, I'm tired of listening to my ego because that's just driving me into the ground.
yeah.
Um, so there's a balance in there somewhere. But you know what? Here's what I've learned. Me trying to give advice to 30-year-olds never works because y'all are going to do whatever you want to do, regardless of what I or anyone else has to say. But listen to your elders. They know what's up.
Yes.
Would you like a custom plan to scale your business? If you want to increase profits without adding more complexity to your life, go to myplantoscale.com and get our free scaling guide right now. It will help you get clear on your business and life goals, ensure your business is optimized for growth, and simplify your schedule so you can focus on what truly matters, making more money while enjoying life and changing the world. Now, back to the show.
So who are the, like, tell us about who are the people that you work with inside remote work school?
Sure. Well, I love everyone that comes into remote work school. I feel like my marketing must be working because I'm attracting exactly the right clientele. And these are folks who are making a transition to something. Maybe they're leaving the workforce. Maybe they unfortunately got aged out or the job ended. But they're really ready for something new. So they're very open-minded. Maybe they don't know everything, but they're willing to learn. Sure, they might have some fears or concerns about, what's next, but they're embracing that. And they're willing to do the work with me to figure out what that next chapter looks like. And I work with folks aged anywhere from about, I'd say, late 40s all the way up to, get this, 81.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've been working with a guy, he's a friend of mine. I had him on my podcast, actually, on the Remote Work Retirement Show, episode 49, if anyone wants to listen. His name is Richard. And he was, or is, an artist. He does art from found objects. He used to teach his method in a classroom. And things have changed. And now he and I are working on how do we put those classes online.
I love that.
Right. And we started with like live workshops. And then along the way, I was like, you might want to record these because, what if you're not feeling good one day? What if you want to travel? Right. Because he does some traveling. He was like, oh, well, that's brilliant. So now he's recording these workshops into video so that people can watch them self-service video style, but he's still making himself available for Q&A and things like that. So he's building his online course, basically, and coaching program at 81 years old.
That's wow.
Come on, right? Like, amazing. So I get inspired. Working with folks like this, the Richards of the world. I have other people. My second oldest person is 75. And I got to tell you, I feel like the people who are in their 70s and approaching 80, they're the ones who are most motivated, believe it or not.
Why?
Because I think it's because, I hate to say it this way, but some people just say to me, time is running out and this is it. I have to do something now because I feel compelled and I'm passionate and I want to make it happen. And I find that more as people move into the later years, whereas the people who are kind of in that 50 and 60-year-old range, they're a little more like, I'm afraid, I don't know, what am I going to do? And they seem a little bit more like, I don't know, maybe sometimes overwhelmed. Whereas I feel like the vision gets more clear, like the older you get. You're like, okay, now's the time. So that I don't know, that's not true for everyone, but enough people I've seen it happen. So yeah.
So it's not about the money for them.
It can be. I think it's about having enough money. So are they going to go off and build a 6 or 7 figure business? That's not necessarily the driver. I think the driver is security and purpose. Enough security and enough purpose to feel like these are the years that they get to do what they want and have some fun and make some money at the same time.
I love that. I wish my dad knew English. he needs to get inside your school.
Oh, well, I should probably play with transcription in other languages. That's easy to do. There's tools that can do that,
Yeah.
I'd love to help him if I could. I'll explore that. I'll see what's possible there.
So, for example, like him, it's incredible. Like it's 2023 and he's still like in the pre-internet era. So he teaches people how to play guitar.
Oh,
and I have always told him like you could teach this online. But he's very resistant to technology.
Right.
Do you help people navigate this, especially now with AI?
Yes. Yeah, I'm moving more into that. I actually just wrapped up a podcast series for the month of May on my show that's all about how to do this and use AI to move you along faster. I think what's cool about AI, especially with this age group, AI actually makes all of this easier, not harder. Because you're in the digital space. Trying to piece together an online business with all the tools you have to use is really hard. I don't blame him for not loving tech. I don't love technology, but oh my gosh, these AI tools, I could launch something, honestly, if I had to, in like a week with these tools, right? Like I could use AI to generate ideas, and then I could use Canva to pretty quickly create some slides. I could use some online tools like Go High Level to quickly whip up a funnel if I had to, a marketing funnel. I mean, my gosh, it's so fast.
Yeah.
It actually reduces the barrier to entry. So yes, I am getting more into helping people actually navigate that because I do think it will give them the pathway. Now, it's interesting about your dad. When I hear someone like you say, well, my parent would love to do this, but is afraid of technology. I think of the guitar the same way I think of technology. It's a tool to create music, just like technology is a tool to create a digital product or an online business. So
Yeah.
tell your dad that, because I think that can help him get past that hurdle a little bit. These are just tools. That's it, to help you create what you want. So that was my soapbox on that.
I'll tell him that.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just another tool.
Yeah, another tool.
And I know you recently recorded an AI episode.
Oh, you listened to that? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Let people know what was that.
Was that your first time hearing an AI podcast episode, or had you heard other ones?
Yes, no. And it sounded pretty similarly to your voice.
Yeah. So that is episode 50. It's only 2 minutes long because who wants to listen to a robot talk? So what I did is I used a tool called Descript, which is a podcasting and transcription, really a pretty amazing content tool. And I taught it essentially to learn my voice using old podcast episodes. And then I typed out a script and it read it in my voice. And I wanted to test this because, as a podcaster, sometimes you want to edit something and you don't want to go back and re-record it. So
Yeah.
you can use an AI voice to dub over, or like I was sick, I had pneumonia, and I wanted to get a podcast out. So I used the AI voice to do it. And I'm just fascinated by it because I feel like there's so many use cases for this stuff. If people can't work, if they have an illness, if they have to take care of a parent or a child or a spouse. I mean, can we use AI for some of these things? And I'm not talking about replacing people because I'm not about that, but I am talking about taking the genius that we have as humans and combining it with the best of AI to produce something better or faster or more interesting. So I don't know where I stand yet completely. I'm just experimenting with all the tools right now.
Yeah, I love that you are not like fear mongering about it.
No.
Because it's here to stay, whether we
Right.
want like it or not.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, and your voice was it was very similar. It just lacked a lot more emotion.
Exactly. I know, it was so weird listening to it because I wanted it to like go up on certain parts, and instead it went down. And you can fix all of that. Like you can get in there and try to
Really?
program it. And I'm like, nah, I'm just going to move on. Go fast. Don't get perfect. Perfection will slow you down.
Yeah. So, all right. Just a few like last questions. I love that the remote work school is all about figuring out what's best for you.
Yes.
It's not about the next shiny object, about doing a cookie cutter program. So
No.
tell us about that, and what are some of those things that help people figure out what they truly want, not what others want for them.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I do think that's what makes remote work school quite different from a lot of the programs that are out on the market. And there's some great programs on the market, but with some of the other programs, you have to be 100% committed to whatever the vision is. For example, there are programs that are going to teach you how to build an online course as a business. Okay, well, you have to be 100% in on that. And maybe you aren't, or you don't know. Or maybe there are other programs that are going to teach you how to have a membership site or make digital products or sell things on eBay or whatever, right? Be an influencer. Well, my whole philosophy is you probably don't know what you want to do yet.
Yes.
So don't spend a whole bunch of money getting committed to something and then halfway through realize, oh my gosh, it's too hard or I don't like it. So remote work school exposes you to what are some of the options out there. Now it does give you two main tracks, I will say.
Mhm.
Track number one is working for somebody else remotely. So that's going to be a job or a part-time job or a contract or whatever. So it's a little bit more traditional. And then the other track, which, and you get both tracks, by the way, you don't have to choose. The other track shows you, well, if you did work for yourself, starting with a service-based business, what
Mhm.
would that look like? From there, that's when you can springboard into all of the other digital options out there, like courses and memberships and coaching and digital products and things like that. But I don't like to tell people to start with that because going from traditional work into a digital business can be pretty jarring.
Yeah.
So I give them more of like a stepping stone, like, okay, let's slow walk you into what's possible. So again, people don't make the same mistakes I did and spend years spinning their wheels on all the wrong things. So that's
Yeah.
what I do is I just really help people navigate that journey.
Yeah, I met a guy on a program who he spent $16,000 on a coaching program. And at the end, he was like, no, this is not what I want to do.
Oh my gosh, that breaks my heart.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that breaks my, and I've done the same thing. I have spent so much money, and some of that is because I just didn't know what I didn't know, and I also come from the era of you're supposed to go to school, I guess. So, anytime somebody came up and they were like, here's my school and it teaches you X, I was like, oh, I must buy that, I
Interesting.
guess.
Yeah.
So I spent loads of money only to figure out that the thing that I wanted to do, only I could figure that out in myself. And yes, maybe with the right coach to help bring it out of me. So
Mhm.
I had to go inward, not outward, to discover that answer. And so that's what I do is I help people go inward, but I also expose them to what the possibilities are before they go all in.
That's so needed. That should be the first chapter of every online course.
Well, there you go. There's a new
Do
business
you
idea
really
right
want to do
there.
that? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. And are there any exercises or maybe questions that help you get clear on what you really want?
Oh, yeah, you did ask me that. Of course. That's how my whole school is designed. A little more background on me. Um, I have a master's degree in counseling. And so I spent years doing um, research and internships and also coaching people where the whole way that I work with people is to give them exercises, questions, um, and the exercises will vary because each learner is different. Some people like to write, some people like to be more creative and loose, some people want direct questions, some people want workbooks to write in, some people need a video. So I just give them all of it. You get everything: audio, video, workbooks, writing, visuals, me answering questions. And that way you have options of how you like to learn. And those things, the way you interact with them will depend on who you are and how you like to do things. So yes, lots of directions, lots of questions, lots of exercises to help unlock what's already inside you. Because the answers are there. We just have to kind of get to them and they're probably buried. So yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. And now that you are like, I'm committed to my path, not to doing some cookie cutter path that someone else created. Do you still look out for mentors, and do you still like believe in mentorship?
You mean for myself?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. If I didn't, then I shouldn't be a mentor to other people, right? Yes, I definitely look for mentors, but I think I'm in a new phase now where I've developed enough of my own inner wisdom now that I don't seek out answers from other mentors, but I
Mhm.
will consult other mentors to validate my ideas, if that makes sense. So I don't listen to somebody and say, oh, that person said this is the way. So I just trust them face value. I'm more like, I think this is the way because my body and my brain and the way I think is guiding me in that direction. now let me consult with somebody who maybe has gone further than me or knows more than me or has the business that I want to build, and meet with them or learn from them. But I have found mostly that listening to myself and the people that I serve, those two things have been the biggest game changer in my ability to move forward in my own business. Really, I think that listening and learning to other gurus tell me what to do in some ways has slowed me down because I put way too much stock in what they had to say for too long.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That surprise you?
No, but it doesn't surprise me from you, but it's definitely how do you say this? Like countercurrent to what most people are saying out there,
Sure.
which is basically success leaves tracks and you just need to follow a plan. And it's like you don't, it's like a lot of neglecting your own inner wisdom.
I think, to be honest, there's a balance in there. I think if you're new and you have absolutely no idea what you're doing, sure, follow a plan. But at some point, the plan isn't really custom to you and who you are. You have to mix your own inner stuff with that plan. Yeah. So I don't discount all gurus or anything. I just, you gotta find your own direction, really.
Yeah. It's like you bring in the why and the what, the goal, and you consult on others on the how.
Oh, that's an excellent way of putting that. Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I love it. Thank you so much, Camille. Where can people find out more about you and the remote work school? Yeah,
well, first of all, thanks for having me. I feel like I was just talking a mile a minute, so hopefully I didn't overwhelm your audience. But if people want to connect with me, CamilleAttell.com is my website. You can also find me on Instagram at Camille.Attell. And then on my website, there are a lot of things people can see, like free training, and you can even join Remote Work School right from my homepage if you want. Lots of places to find me. What is coming next for Remote Work School? Okay. Wow. I've been noodling on this because, I'm an idea generator and I'm having trouble picking one idea, which is funny because I teach people just try one idea at a time. I'm actually going to be training in June a workshop called Launch It Lean using AI. And it's all about using AI to help you develop your coaching and your online course program. I do hybrids. Not a big believer in like only coaching or only courses. So I'll be testing this workshop in June because I test things before I go all in, and it'll be live with me. And people can get that for free if they join Remote Work School by the end of May. So I'm not selling that yet. I'm not going to sell that product until I test it. So anyone who's in Remote Work School will get it for free. Amazing. Thank you so much, Camille. You're welcome. Thank you.
If you enjoyed the show, hit the share button and send it over to one fellow marketer or entrepreneur. We work hard to make sure they'll thank you for it. Also, to get featured on the show, go to valuetising.com and apply to become our next guest. Until next time, keep valuetizing.